American South, he's always there, fighting for freedom over land and air. G.I. Joe!
Hello everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. What we are taking a look at today is the Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Series 60th Anniversary Action Sailor Recon Diver. And I'm really excited about these ones. I really like these 60th anniversary figures, mainly because my first G.I. Joe figure was basically just an army guy. My first G.I. Joe figure was actually like a 12-inch Joe that came in a plastic footlocker. And so for them to do something like these figures, these 60th anniversary figures, where they're basically figures based on the real world branches of the military, we have the Recon Diver and we have the Soldier. I'm not going to be surprised if later in the year or maybe even next year we'll get an Airman and a Marine to go along with them somehow. Or if maybe they even extend this and go into things like NASA and pilots. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But for this, we have the 60th Anniversary Recon Diver, which basically they all got the deluxe treatment, where they have all of this kibble going around the figure. They have all these accessories for them. And let's be honest, all of these accessories are pretty much all reuse. Well, not all reuse, but is a lot of reuse from previous figures. And I'm okay with that as long as they package it all up and everything makes sense. And I think for what we're looking at here, for the most part, everything does make sense coming with this figure. We also have the first one I'm opening that goes back to the windowed packaging. And I mean, it is what it is. I honestly preferred the windowless packaging. I understand if you collect Marvel Legends or Star Wars Black Series, why you wanted to go back to the window boxes, because those two lines had some pretty atrocious packaging when they got rid of the window. I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it, that with the Classified Series, I really felt like the windowless boxes were just beautiful. This is actually kind of boring to me. One thing I do appreciate about this, though, is that if we bring this forward, a little, you can see there's no ties holding any of this in. This is all held in by the clipped plastic shell that is inside the packaging, which to me says, once I take this out and we do this video, if I want to put him back in the packaging and store him in the box and show him off that way, I'll still be able to, which to me is very cool for something like this. Because I was really debating whether or not I was going to open these 60th anniversary figures. But, especially the Diver, and I'll tell you why later in the video, but especially the Diver, I wanted to open them up. I really wish that for these 60th anniversary figures, they would have put them in like a plastic footlocker. Like, not the size that the 12-inch figures came in, but like a plastic footlocker with a tray up top for all of the accessories and everything. I think that would have been like, that would have just made the 60th anniversary figure perfect and would have really made it feel special. As is, this is a deluxe, this is an army builder that gets the deluxe treatment. That's really what this is right now. But like, if they would have put it in the footlocker, that would have been really cool. So before we go any further, let me just drop this. If you like this, and if you like this kind of content, and we're going to be going over a lot of G.I. Joe stuff this year, if you're into that, please leave a like for the video down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to do all the YouTube things, like, subscribe, share, and if you're into this kind of thing, check me out on Ko-fi, where for $1 a month you can get access to exclusive content, early access to these videos, and other member bonuses. Now, back on to the show. Like I said, we have a windowed box right here where you can see all of the kibble. I do appreciate that they have this graphic down here. They still have like these, they're still going to have these artist renditions of the figure inside. Just the black bordering right here is kind of boring. I know they were probably going for like a nice clean look, but what I've seen with the other ones coming out where it's just like a black border, that's kind of boring. Kind of reminding me of a throwback to like the DC multiverse from McFarlane, where there's not really a whole lot going on with that packaging either. On the side, though, we have a full body image, artist's rendition of the diver in action. On this side, we're back to the QR code. You'll note that there's no numbering system for this because even though it is G.I. Joe classified, it's technically not going to be part of the line because it's just a 60th anniversary, well, not just, but it's the 60th anniversary figure. Up top, more window to let the light shine down. And then on back, we have a product photo. Do not have an image of all of the gear that he comes with because that's in the front that you can see through the window now. But I do like this posed shot. And even though that is probably just a computer generated ship in the background, it looks like those like old models that I used to have. I like that. That's cool. Then we have some close-ups to look at here. The diving mask, his gear on his wrist, which is probably depth, or I don't think it's sonar. I don't know. Anybody that knows anything about diving, if you know what that is, let me know. But I thought it would have been a depth gauge, but it looks like it might be some kind of personal sonar. Don't really know. Let me know if you know. Comment down below. So, without further ado, let's get this open and let's take a look at the HASBRO G.I. Joe Classified Series 60th Anniversary Action Sailor Recon Diver. And remember, if you want one of your own, you can get yours at Entertainment Earth. Entertainment Earth is your one-stop shop for all toys, clothing, collectibles, and more. Get the newest from Hasbro, Mattel, Bandai, and Super 7, as well as exclusives that can't be found anywhere else. With over 25 years in the business, Entertainment Earth has what you want. Click the link in the description below. Okay, here he is, our 60th anniversary Action Sailor Recon Diver out of the box. And putting the tape measure to him, we can see that he is, like pretty much most classified figures, 6 1/4 inches to the top of his head. Bringing him up close, let's just get this part out of the way that I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anybody that the Recon Diver is basically complete reuse from Torpedo, right down to his accessories, which we'll take a look at in a moment. But you can see that like the mold, the sculpt, basically the wetsuit of this figure is exactly the same as this figure. He has just different top gear on him. His knife sheath is the same, the hip pouches are the same. Everything is the same. Even the way the head sculpt is done is the same, although it's not the same head sculpt. And I don't have a problem with this because they're both in the Navy. They would both have like the same general issued gear, you know, GI gear. So I don't have issue with that. Just be, you know, ready for what you're getting. That this is basically a repaint of Torpedo with some new gear, with some new kit. So now that that's out of the way, let's just bring him up a little closer. And I dig this color scheme. I really dig this color scheme, and you'll see why later in the video, but I really like it. I really like this head sculpt too. This head sculpt is the look of a diver that means business. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing. Remember, this is a diver. This isn't a SEAL. Torpedo's a SEAL. He's a diver. There is a difference. Because actually, I think the other official diver that we got from the G.I. Joe Vintage line, Wetsuit, I think he was just a diver too. Torpedo, I believe, was the only SEAL they ever had. I can't remember if Wetsuit was a SEAL or not. I thought he was a Navy diver. But that aside, he looks really cool with all of this gear. This, I'm going to blow it on some of the gear. I know I am, but I believe this is like an emergency life jacket that like these blow and just like auto inflate and it'll bring him to the top in an emergency. Sort of like, you know, how, you know, an emergency blow, just pull the cord and up he goes. The total reverse of a parachute. Now, the vest on him is new. Torpedo doesn't have anything like that. This was made specifically for this figure, and I like it because, as you see, once we get all of his gear and we start putting it on him, this vest is going to help him carry a lot of his kit and have it all on him all at once. And that's one of the things that really makes the G.I. Joe line stand out, I feel, is when they can have all of their kit on them at once. That was one of my big complaints, or not complaints, but one of my big nitpicks about the retro carded Scarlet was that she had gear that like she couldn't have kitted out on her unless she was carrying it. Other than his submersible, I believe he will be able to stow and carry pretty much everything that he comes with. And we have this black bodysuit with this dark green paint scheme. Even the wrist device is the same as what Torpedo has over here. Just a different paint job, but it's basically the same design. Once again, if anybody knows what this actually is, please feel free to tell me. I still think it's a depth gauge and probably something to monitor his oxygen. That's what my guess would be. We have a holster up front. We have a spot for the suppressor. We have a peg hole up front. Lots of gear is going to be going on this guy. So let's just take a look at the articulation and get that out of the way. That the head will do a full 360 spin. Unfortunately, he does not look up very well, which is unfortunate because a lot of poses are going to be akin to flying poses. You know, you put him on a figure stand and you get him in those swim poses, he's going to need to be able to look up. He doesn't really do that well. He can look down though. He also has some decent tilt side to side. This is a little loose. Once we put the backpack on him, it helps to, well, once we put all the other kit on him, it helps to like really hold this into position. His arms will come up to 90. He has a very well hinged butterfly joint in there. Bicep swivel. Double jointed elbows with some decent travel to them. Wrists pivot. Both wrists hinge up and down. Both can be used as trigger hands. Now, he does have that same ab cut in here that Torpedo has, but because of this vest, there we go. It's a little harder to crank him forward and backward than it is Torpedo, because this isn't very stiff, but it's all encompassing and it's sort of like a harness around him. So bringing him forward isn't that bad. Putting him back is a little bit of a trial because of this solid piece right here. He also has the ball joint at the waist that lets him do a full 360. Not a whole lot of rock side to side, not a whole lot of front and back off of that ball joint either. Drop down legs that will come forward, go back, come out to the side, just under 90 degrees, thigh cut, double jointed knees that mine are really stiff. There we go, double jointed knees. Ankle twist, not really a boot cut, just a twist at the ankle. Ankles rock way back. Ankles rock way forward, which this way back is real good, once again, for swimming poses whenever we get the flippers on him. And he has a forward-facing pin for some rocker. Now, like I said, this is all basically Torpedo. We're not going to spend much more time looking at the body because if you've seen Torpedo, you know what you get. And quite honestly, other than all of his gear, it is a very plain body, but it's a wetsuit. What else are you expecting? There's a lot of gear to be looking at, so that's what we're going to be jumping into next. Starting with his accessories, the first thing we're going to look at is this. These are his dog tags. I appreciate that these 60th anniversary figures have dog tags, because if I'm not mistaken, I believe, if I'm remembering right, those 12-inch figures came with dog tags too, actual metal dog tags. So this is cool that he has these. These fit very well underneath. Now, it's plastic, so it would have a tendency, you got to pop the head off, it would have a tendency of wanting to like stick out, but you can tuck this underneath his vest. Let's take the vest off first. Put the dog tags around the neck piece, and then we put the vest over top of it, and the life preserver, the life jacket, will actually help hold the tags down out of the way. And that adds a nice little splash of color, a little bit of brightness on an otherwise dark green and black body. I like the look of that. Another smaller accessory that he comes with is his suppressed 1911. Once again, I love that they gave him a 1911 because those Joes 60 years ago came with a 1911. Whoops, lost focus. The suppressor does come off, so we can just have the pistol right there, and it has an extended magazine as well. Now, there are two pouches on the front of his vest specifically for these items. That this pouch up front is for the suppressor, and we can slip that in there, and that is a very tight fit. It's supposed to go barrel up or barrel down. Let's try it this way. Let's see if we can get it in there a little deeper this way. Still, it pops out a little bit. there we go. Just had to break it in a little. And then over here is the holster for his 1911, which is also a tight fit. Get in there. There we go. They're a nice tight fit. Like, they're a little bit tricky to get them in there the first time because of how tight the plastic is. But once you get them in there, they're held tight. They won't come out. And it looks good on him. Once we get all this kit on here, you're going to be amazed at how much we can actually fit on this guy. And the last small item we have to take a look at is his diving knife. And this is the same knife that came with Torpedo. It's just that it has a black handle instead of a red handle. And you've already seen it, that he has the same dagger sheath on his thigh that Torpedo has. So this fits in there. And that tucks away like that. You're probably going to be hearing this phrase a lot in the next few minutes. These are the same flippers that came with Torpedo. You can see that they are the same. They just don't have the paint job. I think they're also the same ones that came with the eels. I mean, if it works, it works. They are labeled right and left for his right and left feet, and they just slip on and then fit on like that. Okay. Now, the back of the vest also has these hooks that I believe these are for hanging the the left one. That these are for hanging the flippers off of. It would be cool if they would have found a way to be able to like have them, if they would have been able to have them like up against the legs, like how they wear them whenever they dive out of a plane. Realistically, I know on a 6-inch figure they weren't going to be able to do that, but I think this is a really cool alternative, being able to hang them off the back like that. Now, this is the same pack that comes with Torpedo as well. However, the way that it connects to him is going to be a little bit different. That we do have this pack. And honestly, I'm not sure what the purpose of this pack is for, and you'll understand why I'm saying that once you see some of his other accessories. We do have this bottom clip right here that is meant for holding his SMG, and I believe this is an HK. I forget what the number actually is, but I think this is an HK. If I'm wrong, I know there's at least one viewer watching this that'll be able to tell me if I'm wrong, and please do. I always appreciate it whenever I get educated on what these are. The magazine does pop out. The 1911 magazine is molded in there. It doesn't pop out, but this one does. And this clip on the bottom of the backpack, you can see these little grooves. You can see these grooves here on the side that look like they were molded to be the action of the machine gun, of the SMG, but those are actually clips so that the bottom of the backpack can grip onto it and hold it in place once he puts this on. And I'll be honest, going through the vest, it's not as tight of a fit as it is with Torpedo. You can see, though, it doesn't really interfere with the flippers either. So he has all of this gear back here, all of this kit. And in a moment, you're going to see why I questioned what the purpose of the backpack is on this figure. Well, before we get to that, there is one more item to take a look at, and that is this. Now, this is the satchel that came with Snake Eyes. It came with the retro-carded Snake Eyes. The one Snake Eyes oh no, I do have that one. I just haven't opened him yet. I'm going to be honest, even when I was a kid in the 80s, I'm not entirely sure what these are. At first, I thought these were magazines when I was a kid for the Uzi. But the more I look at them, is it C4? Is this explosives? I think that's what this is. And this I sling off of his left shoulder. I'm sorry. Yeah, on the underneath his left arm. And that, the strap is big enough that you can fit it, let it slip underneath. Whoop, the rifle fell off. Hold on. You just sort of finagle it a little. The arm, when his arm is down, will help hold it down. Like so. And it fits into place very well right there. Let me pop this back up in. I had this problem with Torpedo too, that the claw doesn't really grip the machine gun, the SMG, very well. And if you bump it a little, it will tend to pop out. It's the dark colors that are giving it a problem. That's why the focus keeps going out. But you can see his kit is really getting tight on him. Let's not do that. Let's bring this forward over that. There we go. Like so. Let's put this back on. There we go. That looks better. He's really getting loaded up right here. And it's cool because like it all fits. Realistically, I don't know how heavy all of this would be, but it looks cool. Okay, so now things start to get a little hairy. Here's his diving mask, and here is his oxygen tank, his rebreather. There's something I want to draw attention to, that there is a stub right here that looks like a hose is supposed to plug into it. Just remember that in a few minutes when we're going over this. Now, it also has this peg right here that is supposed to peg into this hole on his vest. However, either the peg hole, the socket, is too small, or the peg is too thick in diameter because it doesn't fit on there very easily. As a matter of fact, when I do get it on, I feel like it's just barely hanging on. And it's actually the mask, the rifle keeps falling off. It's actually the mask being fit over his head that is helping to hold that on in its place. One of the last pieces we have to look at is this, and I believe this is supposed to be a light, that is like a high-powered halogen light up front. I'm not entirely sure what the gauges up top are supposed to be, unless it's just supposed to be, I think that might be like, you know, up and down, like how level you are underwater. I'm not sure what that is. Once again, if anybody knows what these dials are supposed to be, or if Hasbro just added them, they have been known to do that, but I'm fairly certain this is supposed to be a halogen light. Now, it does have a clip on back. These handles are here so that he can hold on to it with his hands if he wants to, but this clip goes into this socket on his chest piece, and the light just hangs off the front of him. He has some serious gear going on here. And he's just looking cooler and cooler and cooler. And now one of the final accessories we have to take a look at is one that we have seen twice already. It is his harpoon gun. So we've seen this with Torpedo with a different paint job. We've seen this with the Eel with a different paint job. I'm willing to bet whenever we get Wetsuit, we'll get a version of this again with another paint job. But let's be real. Military divers do not use spear guns. It's time to put that trope to bed. I get why they included it, and in an ironic way, I kind of appreciate that they included it, but he's not going to use it. It's not something he would realistically have, especially for a figure like this, where they're trying to do like a real-world replica of an actual Navy diver. This is not going to go on him. The 60th anniversary figures come with a figure stand, just like the retro carded figures do. It's the same G.I. Joe stand with the star and the two pegs. And then we have his submersible right here, and I think this is a really cool touch. I do appreciate this. First of all, the propeller inside does spin. Let me see if I can find something to spin it. There's no external way, like there's no knob or anything that spins it, but if you get something in there, it does spin. I hope you can see that. We have a little mini sonar right here on top. We have what I would assume is another control panel, but with no graphics or anything right there. A handle that's probably meant for carrying it. I believe it would go in this direction. This is motor and fuel, or motor and electricity, actually. I think these are electrical. Now, what I find interesting is that they put the control panel in the middle and they put the handles on it like he would be holding on to it and it would be pulling him. The real life version of these, and please, if anybody knows, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the real life version of these is set up to transport 3, 4 at the most people, passengers. And I think that it would be set up that like, because there's controls on both of these handles, but everything I've seen, it's set up that like one diver would hold on to this side, one diver would hold on to this side. And out of all the people that would be clinging to this thing or even lashed to each other while they're riding it, only one is considered the driver. And from what I've heard, he's the lucky guy because he's the one that gets to look at the instrument panel, which is really nothing more than a compass and a depth gauge, but at least it gives him something to look at while all of the other ones just get to watch water, because these aren't very fast. But I do believe that something small like this, because the real life ones, I forget what they're called, are, I believe, bigger than this, comparatively speaking. I mean, like compared to the figure size. So like something this size might only be able to like transport 2 people with one guy hanging on this side, one guy hanging on this side, and it just going. That is what I think. I do dig this. I do appreciate this. I like this because this is new. This is unique to this figure, and it just adds a little bit to like that deluxe feeling of the figure that he gets something like this. And real fast, here we are, both head sculpts. And I'll be honest, when I first saw them in the box, I thought these head sculpts were the same, but with just like different skin toning. I really did. But getting them up close, putting them side by side, getting them out of the packaging, even turning them profile, you can see that these are 2 different head sculpts. They have different features. The expressions are basically the same, but the features and the proportions are a little different, which I appreciate that even more once I got it out of the box and I realized these aren't the same. You've seen the video with this one on it for the most part, but let's pop this one on just so you can see what that looks like as well. It fits on there nice and tight, and there you go. So now that we have him fully kitted out, let me tell you why I am confused as to what the purpose of the backpack is and why I drew attention to this little stub sticking out the side. Because I feel like there was meant to be a hose that went from here that plugged into the pack. There's nothing. There's no other hoses, and it feels like there should be. That there should be something that would plug into here, maybe come under this arm and plug into the front pack right here. Because this would obviously be like the rebreather, the sealed system. I don't know. I don't think this is big enough for it. Tell me if I'm wrong if you know for a fact, but other than like this missing hose, which would make sense as to why he's coming with his backpack, other than being the item that holds the machine gun on, the SMG on, there's really no use for him to have this pack. And the more I look at it and the more I think about it, with all of the other gear he has on up here, I may actually end up taking this backpack off because it's really not serving a purpose. So while we have them all kitted out like this, there is one thing that I want to draw attention to, that I guess the head looking up really isn't that big of an issue. Let me just hold this here so that the chest piece doesn't pop off. But once he has this on with the hoses, his head articulation is very limited. From side to side, the tilt you still have access to. The side to side is limited because the hoses are going to be pulling on this. And the down isn't a problem, but he really can't look up while he has this on, which is a shame, but I guess it makes the whole lack of being able to look up without the mask on an easier pill to swallow when you figure he's not going to be able to do it very well anyway. Okay, so here he is, our 60th anniversary Action Sailor Recon Diver, all kitted out of the box, geared up and ready to go. And here is where I tell you what finally made me decide to open him. It wasn't the fact that you can just put all this stuff back into the box and display him that way, because you can. I was right about that. Just take a look at that color scheme. Guess where he's going to end up?
Rise to the sun with 7 wishes. We can turn into stone with 7 wishes.
That's right. My man just got recruited into Night Force. I really love Night Force. I really love building out Night Force. And when I was looking at him, debating whether or not to take him out of the box, and I started to look at that color scheme, and I started putting the other Night Force characters up next to him, I was like, this is perfect. And his code name, as far as I'm concerned, his code name is Diver. We have a SEAL whose name is Torpedo. We have another diver that's coming whose name is Wetsuit. Him being called Diver, I'm perfectly fine with that. And now for size comparison, here he is beside HASBRO G.I. Joe Classified Series Torpedo and the Amazon exclusive Eel. Here he is beside Hasbro Marvel Legends Captain Marvel and Elektra. I have a bunch of new Spider-Men that I should open up just so that I have a new male Marvel Legend to do a size comparison with. Here he is beside the Valaverse Action Force Desert Rat and Pandora, and quite frankly, I'm amazed that Action Force hasn't come out with a diver-type character yet. That's not a dig. I'm genuinely surprised they haven't come out with something like this for the Action Force line yet. Here he is beside Lanyard Toys City Hunter Predator and Xenomorph Drone. Here he is beside Mattel Masterverse 40th Anniversary He-Man and Masters of the Universe movie Skeletor. And finally, here he is beside NECA Toys, Dungeons & Dragons, Warduke, and Grimsword. So I'll be honest, it's hard not to like this figure. It really is. I mean, if you like Torpedo and you like the Eel, you're going to like this figure because he's basically the same thing, just with different gear and a different head sculpt. Now, the gear is what makes him unique, is what makes him stand out. He gets that deluxe treatment. He has a lot of gear going on. He's kind of like the diver version of Snowjob with the amount of kit that he has. What's frustrating to me is some of it is not needed. I keep going back to the backpack. The backpack, other than holding the SMG in there, really has no purpose for being there. There's no hose hooking the chest piece up to the backpack right there. There's no connection. It's unnecessary. Something as small, like you gave him all this other stuff, one more hose piece, and I did go back and check the packaging to make sure that I didn't miss it. Maybe it's supposed to be there and I didn't get one, but without a hose connecting it, the backpack really has no point of being there. And then there's the spear gun. Stop giving the military divers the spear gun. They wouldn't use it in real life. It's kind of hokey. They don't need it. Other than those two things, I really think this guy's really cool. I really like the paint job on him. I like the two different face sculpts that you get with him. I do like that there is the ability to army build with this figure if that's what you're into. I personally am not into army building G.I. Joe. Cobra, yes. The Joes, no. That's why I'm making this guy part of Night Force. That's why I'm actually giving him a code name. That's why I'm fitting him into my headcanon. Because to me, the Joes aren't something that should have the green shirts, that should have army building. Like, they are a group of specialists. Each one is unique. Each one is an individual. They're not officially like a branch of the military. They pull from the other branches of the military. They wouldn't pull just like infantry for this. That kind of defeats the purpose of what they are. They're not frontline fighters. Now that little rant is off the table, back to the figure. Other than those few nitpicks, I like that all of his gear actually does fit on him, because when I saw all of it in the packaging, I questioned whether or not it was actually going to fit, whether or not he was actually going to be able to wear all of it. And amazingly enough, he does. And that is impressive, especially for the amount that he has on him. The head not being able to look up is a really big bummer, especially if you're going to use a figure stand, a flight stand, and you're going to put him in swimming poses. That is a bit of a bummer. Opening him up though and taking a look at him, getting my hands on him, it's making me more excited to open up the soldier that I have, and it's making me more excited that there may be like an airman and a Marine coming down the line. I think we need those. Like, they can't just do two and then not do the other two branches of the military. There has to be at least two more figures coming down the line. And truthfully, if they carry through with this and they do well, I really think they could do like a 6-inch version of what the old G.I. Joe team used to be. That you could have just figures based off of real life military personnel in different gear, different kit, different positions within the 4 branches of the military. I think it could be really cool. I really do. I don't expect that they would go that far with it, but I would be right there for it if they did. I also wish it came with a footlocker. That's the last time I'm going to beat that horse. So let me know what you think of the 60th anniversary figures. I do know that there are those that think that these were done in answer to Valaverse. I personally don't think that's true. I totally get why some people do have that opinion and why some people do think that is why these figures were made. But when you take into account the origin of G.I. Joe, the roots of G.I. Joe, that it was everyday soldiers and sailors and airmen and pilots and Marines and SEALs and divers and everything that makes up the branch of the military, that it was all army building. That's like, this is the roots of G.I. Joe. So for them to do this for the 60th anniversary actually makes a lot of sense, at least to me. And I really feel that they would have done this even if something like Valaverse, the Action Force, wasn't an issue. Because G.I. Joe has never really been about army building. It's always been about the characters, the personalities, the different looks, the bright colors, things like that. Action Force seems to be more focused on the army building aspect of it. So I don't think these were done in retaliation or in answer to that. I do think this is just how the 60th anniversary figures turned out, and it would have been this way no matter what. But that is my opinion. Let me know what you know. Comment down below, and until next time, my friends, play well, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.